This class is going to be about group economics, and the last couple of weeks pretty much let me know that we're going to have to build on this, especially dealing with this whole Nicki Minaj situation. And it sounds funny to have that connected to group economics, but it shows how connected we are and invested we are into their society. For even though at the end of the day that is an outrage for her to disrespect Brother Malcolm like that, our ancestor, the way she did, that's reality. That was a big blatant disrespect the way she had that as her next album cover, which is straight bullshit. But I think that showed how I've seen some sisters stick up for her, which is really kind of crazy, brothers and sisters. It just showed how invested we are into their system, really invested. And one just define, I'm sure whoever's on here can define what group economics is. It's the process of investing in, let's say, one race decides to only invest in self. Like the biggest example that everyone wants to use in terms of group economics is what you see Asians do, what you see Latinos do, what you see Middle Easterns do. They only buy and sell to each other. One of the biggest things my father said one day was he said we have to corner the Egyptian market. And what that meant was when we were going into, learning about Egyptology and learning about, African science and Egyptian mysteries, was the clothes we were wearing. We started wearing more Egyptian things. He wanted us to invent clothes or some type of clothes that gave us like an ancient Egyptian feel, not just the clothes, but even the shoes and even the hair. Corner Egyptian market, meaning that if I create a business and that business is set around a specific time zone in African history, you have to come to me to get that information. You have to come to me to get that specific clothes, that specific brand. And that's the reality, meaning that we by this time should be the ones to corner the African market, like in terms of African clothes. And that's why I admire people like the Nubia Apparel and the Pharaonic clothing brands. They get the point because their stuff is geared around ancient Egypt, Ethiopia. It promotes that sense. But the biggest thing that they do is they buy and sell from each other. Claude Anderson gave the example of, in Hidden Colors too, about, let's say, if I have a barbershop and you have a taxi service, I use you as your taxi. I use you to drive me around. I invest in you, but you come to my barbershop and you get your hair cut, and that black dollar generates at least 15 times before it leaves our hands and goes into the white society, into the European society. That's the way it should be right now. Examples, as I said, in Chinatown, in any part of any United States you have a Chinatown, they don't leave their neighborhoods, not at all. They don't leave, barely. You might go, biggest example, when you go to Walmart, you rarely see certain races. You mostly see the black race. You see some whites every now and then that are broke. You might see you're going to see a good amount of Latinos. But a good amount of Latinos, of course, they have their own neighborhoods. And they continue to buy and sell to each other. When you deal with the Asian, in their mind, they only buy and sell to each other. They keep that ideology when they get over here. The same thing with the African. The African does this. See, the American Negro is the only person that buys from everybody else. We're the biggest consumer on the planet. I'm talking about as a whole. When I say the American Negro, I'm talking about blacks born in America are the biggest consumers on the planet in terms of money being spent on frivolous things. Catch me again. There was a period of time in our history, in this society, where we only bought and sold to each other. You know, you can use the Black Wall Streets and, you know, from Durham, North Carolina, you know, where, you know, the black taxi service, the black bus service. We can use the Black Wall Street, but there was many others. You know, the thing is with Jim Crow, we couldn't buy from them. We couldn't even even if I didn't want your stuff, the whole thing was, we don't even want you around anything that has anything to do with us at all. You have to stay where you are. But that forced us during our time of consolidation, when blacks was consolidated, it gave us that innate initiative to buy and sell from each other. We didn't have to go to them because the money was being generated to the point where nobody needed and wanted for anything. And we go and let's say from 1920, 1930s, from, let's say, to be historically accurate, from 1865 all the way up until 1964 was when blacks had the biggest financial success in this country they ever had. Once we signed that Bill of Rights, once A. Fuller Randolph and Dr. King had Lyndon Baines Johnson sign that Bill of Rights so we can integrate, that's when the black dollars began to plummet. Because the biggest thing that you have to understand as a people is that integration ended black power, black financial power, and it created white power because we began to invest more into them. Because the biggest thing is that's one reason why a lot of us buy things. You know, we buy these clothes, these shoes, the Jordans, the fancy clothes, the skinny jeans, because psychologically, that's us rubbing up against the European. That's integration. The black dollar investing into their pockets is integration. We never moved into their neighborhoods because they wouldn't allow us to. You know, they would, of course, discriminate against us, and they wouldn't give us the loan. They wouldn't just let us move there, period. The whole thing was, if I go back again, Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson was integrated into Major League Baseball because they wanted the black dollars. Okay? The Negro Leagues had enough baseball teams to where they didn't need to have to bring a Jackie Robinson in. They had better players there than Jackie Robinson was. But the whole thing was, we need these black dollars, and they used him as that token and as that prop to bring in the blacks. So that the more blacks can come in, they get that black dollar, and that Negro League plummets. Because you didn't just have Negro League baseball leagues, you had the football leagues. The football leagues plummeted once, you know, you had the Marion Motleys and the Woody Hayes, and, you know, when they finally was able to, you know, because Jim Brown was actually going to go to the Negro Leagues first, but he was talked into, when he was in Syracuse, to go into the Browns. A lot of people don't know that, you know. And the problem was, once they got that established, again, everything that we established during our time of black consolidation fell apart once we began to integrate with them. That is our biggest problem, is that we do not invest in self. Everybody that calls themselves conscious should be practicing group economics, which means that everyone who calls themselves conscious should have their own form of business. If a person knows nutrition, knows, you know, how to cook nutritionally, or knows herbs, they should turn themselves into the best herbologists they know, and a person should only buy to them. You shouldn't have to go into West University and, you know, the good part of Houston or the good part of wherever you are, and buy from them and buy from the Whole Foods. I should only be buying from my brother, regardless of what religion they are, to empower him. And if I sell something he needs, then it reciprocates. The black dollar gets created, and we don't fall. That's the biggest thing with black businesses is black businesses fail because we don't support them. I went into a black business today. Went into a black business, and it was a African restaurant. And see, the biggest complaint about black businesses is terrible service, terrible customer service. It's bad customer service, I'll be honest with you. But I felt better going to them to buy their food than going to a Mexican restaurant or going to fast food, Chinese. I felt better going to them and making sure that they stay alive. Because at the end of the day, he may be from a different country, but that's still my brother. And we got to create that union, that unification, that African unification. Because we can't have that, at the end of the day, they look at us funny and we look at them funny. That's just, it's even. One doesn't look at no one funnier than the other. That's reality. But the point is this: we have to start practicing group economics. Once we begin to practice that on a consistent level, their system will fail. Did a whole class on the system of the human beast and everything last year, and it was designed to get the mindset of these American blacks to no longer trust their situation. Because, I realize, man, you got Trayvon Martin dying in Florida, and you still got blacks supporting anything that's going on in Florida. That state should have went belly up in terms of finances, black finance. Black finance is what keeps the beast system successful, because we keep giving them our money. And see, black finance in Florida should have already failed. That should have been a hit. Like, wait a minute, why am I still giving these people money and they allowed this murderer to just kill out our black child? That should have been something to just went on in our heads and say, this needs to stop. Plain and simple. I'm not giving these crackers no more of my money. I'm putting my money into my people. It should have been at least a 4-day fast that everybody should have came together and said, you know what, for 4 days we're not going to put no money into Florida at all. But the first thing blacks do is like, well, why I got to do that? We can't do that. We begin to, and that showed how dependent we are psychologically on that system. It's a psychological thing. And once you truly realize, or once you truly accept what consciousness really is, because consciousness is not just about reading Sheikh Anta Diop or the ISIS papers or Dr. Ben. Consciousness is about realizing where you are and realizing financially we give too much of who we are to them. Again, we have to practice group economics. We have to begin to learn to buy from only each other. We can't rely on Walmart anymore. Walmart is what it is, and we have to learn that we can create our own black supermarkets. Even if we need to pair up with the Nigerians or whoever it is, that's still our brothers. We're going to call ourselves Africans. We need to be African. Even if it's not them, let's say it's somebody random, a random black tycoon that decides to create a black-owned system that's designed for groceries, a black-owned farmers market, a black-owned Whole Foods. All blacks should only go to them only. And that should send a message to whites, because the underlining is you still have that child that's that old white man up for trial right now for killing that young boy right now. That's ridiculous. And what the heck is a deliberation for a European to just shoot a child unarmed? Because mentally, in their mind as Europeans, they see Africans as having, as a whole, and black Americans as having no power. No power equals no status. Status is financial. And nationality is also connected with it as well, but that's a whole different class. But anyway, Europeans, whites for other people, look at blacks as having no power on every level, status-wise, financial-wise, and just self-defense-wise, because they don't fear us. When a group of people don't come together and they're weak and they're disenfranchised, everyone else is looking at you, and they already know, okay, I could do this to to this board right now and nothing's going to happen to me, that's a problem. No one should ever look at us as Africans born in America as a weakness or a weak race or a weak tribe of people, but they look at us in that way. You know, they look at us as very susceptible, easily to destroy, easy to knock off and kill. That's the bottom line. And we have to get other people to respect who we are. And the best way to do that is to cripple the system one by one. You know, this is going to touch someone, but it needs to touch us immediately because we got to start, doing that. Dr. Kyles and us, we practice group economics. I buy from him, he buys from me. That's the first person I do that with every week. I make sure I do that. And everyone here should be able to do the same thing. I respect the fact that he wants to work on that level that we should only buy and sell from each other at least a certain amount of times before we have to go to him for our gas or our groceries. We got to be able to do that, brothers and sisters, because it's time out for being dependent on that system for our salvation. We're still slaves. That's reality. If I have to be dependent upon you for something, then I am a slave. And none of us should have that mentality no more. The slave mentality should be dead in the Negroes' minds. And it is. The only problem is a lot of us are lazy and we are very dependent upon that system. And it just takes the innate God principle to drop it and make a change for the better for your own race of people. That's what it comes down to. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to add?
No.
Yeah. This is the bottom line. The only way we're going to really survive is we practice group economics. I'm saying it enough times so that this is repetition and it begins to resonate with us as a people. You know, it's too much instances. It shouldn't take also one person to say it. The people, the tribe or whoever it is, it don't have to be a specific black organization, but the people who begin to practice it will be the most successful black people in this country. You know, the ninth richest nation as a whole, though, is the African. And the biggest consumers as a whole is us. And that is an imbalancement. That puts us in the negative. Because if I'm the biggest, if we're the ninth richest nation, yet at the same time we're the biggest consumers, you're not going to be able to save any money, and you can't build anything off of being the biggest consumer. That's not going to work. There has to be less consumption and more riches, which means that we have to be able to only, again, buy and sell from each other. Everyone here has the ability to create a business for themselves. Okay? We all have that ability. Obviously, if we was able to do it during Black Wall Street and create a whole city in Tulsa, Oklahoma, of course, to only have to depend on each other. See, now when you talk about that, when we first realized and we first learned about Black Wall Street, it seemed like science fiction. It seemed like a science fiction horror movie. Like, wow, blacks did that by themselves. A lot of black people felt like that, you know, and that needs to be just a replica of something that we can do right now. That's the bottom line. And group economics don't mean that church, that these black Christians consistently put their money into every week, collection plate, tithes and all, and ATMs, all the crap that's going on. That ain't group economics, and that ain't going to do it. That ain't going to do it. The most revolutionary thing you can do right now is to buy and sell with your brother and your sister. And you need to have more black businesses. Black businesses don't succeed because they don't get the capital. The capital is a big thing that a lot of foreigners come over here and get. That's why you got these Timmy Chan's and Chinese restaurants all over the place, and you got these Mahatma Gandhi districts with these Middle Eastern people, and they can continue to keep disrespecting you because they get the they're coming from third world countries, but they get capital, so they automatically get their business.
blacks have not gotten capital yet since they've been here. They have not gotten any capital to start any business. Most of our businesses, even Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street was really started by a group of black men that came together and hustled and put their money together and created a whole city of black-owned businesses. It's just a black-ran city. See, and people have to understand that. They wonder, because we always wondered, how did people come over to this country and get the capital that they're getting to start these businesses? Because when they get over here, they're being funded by this government. You got to realize we're at the bottom of the totem pole on so many levels. And status means race. Anytime you say status, you're saying race and you're saying finances. We're the brokers because we put all our money into them. And so when they come over here, all these foreigners, the Asians, again, the Middle Easterns, the Indians, all these people, they get capital. They get a certain amount of money to start a business. And they what they do is, for 18 years, you got to think about it like this. We put their kids through college more than any grant organization you can think of. We put more kids through college. We put more Asian kids through college than any other loan they could ever have, because we invest so much of our money into their bullshit. That's the bottom line. We go into their flea markets. They don't have to be Chinese restaurants. We go into their flea markets. We buy their shoes. We do all this stuff. We buy all their clothes. We buy things that we really don't need because, again, mentally, we think in terms of integration. And integration, again, was the end of black power, was the end of black finances. People may disagree with that, but that's the bottom line, because we were self-dependent. We were dependent upon self. We weren't dependent upon whites, because the thing is that as long as I'm buying from you, I think I got a piece of you. As long as blacks are buying frivolous things, again, the shoes, the electronics, the rims, that's mentally a need to be in the house. That's exactly what it is. It's a mental need to be in the house of this beast man. And that's not going to get it, because you can never be in his house. You can never be in his system. You can invest all day. He'll use you all day the same way he's using Nicki Minaj's demonic ass. But the bottom line is this. If you do not show you have financial power, at the end of the day, no one's going to respect you. See, everyone else has some form of financial power. They have they have dual citizenship. Whether you like to, admit it or not, everybody else does. They can connect themselves to their home country, and they can get some form of capital from that country. Africans don't do that, or blacks in this society don't do that, because they don't want to consider themselves to be African. When you don't establish a status, or you don't have a status, you are weak on every level. And the first way that we're going to have to get back our strength is financial. That's plain and simple. We have to connect ourselves with ourselves in terms of whatever business we have. Everybody here should have a business. Every person that calls themselves of African conscious should realize that, Africans deal with money. They're business people, so we need to have that as some form of blueprint or a replica of what we need to do as people who are African conscious, that are born in this continent, North America, and reestablish ourselves, because once we do, other countries will see us as a power. Because you got to realize, again, go back in time, Black Wall Street was seen as a power. Other countries were looking at them as someone they can connect themselves to before they got burned down and got sticks of dynamite thrown on them. And end up basically wiping out that whole Tulsa, Oklahoma, and setting up shop on top of them. But they decided to do what they did. But again, just drive this home. We need to see that as a replica of what we can do, not as something that's just nice to look at. We need to start investing in self, bottom line. And then we'll be able to cripple what they're doing, because, again, they don't even succeed and they don't even function if we don't give them any of our financial power, bottom line. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
No questions, just comments, because I know you were talking about examples of us actually being successful with cooperative economics in the past, and also another good example to follow by was Black Star Line with Marcus Garvey.
Exactly.
And for me, in my opinion, I would say that the three biggest examples that we have had in the past little over 100 years, like you said, was the Tulsa, which was Black Wall Street, the Black Star Line with Marcus Garvey, and the Wu-Nuwaupu Nation with your father, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
And so, I mean, we have the examples there. It's just like you said, we supporting the wrong people. And we even support people in our neighborhoods at corner stores that won't even allow our children to go into their stores with backpacks or go into their stores, period. And still we have the adults who go in and support these businesses.
Exactly.
So, I would...
Even with Elijah, I look at Elijah Muhammad as well, Nation of Islam, and what they were doing in their time frame of their heyday, from the 30s to the 60s and 70s. They were... his thing was do for self, and this thing was, okay, we're in this situation, but we got to do for self and show that we don't need them at the same time. Yeah, and you're right. The fact of, once my father ended up getting the land, we didn't need to leave the land. That was it. We didn't need to leave it. We didn't need to leave the land for anything. We didn't have to. Water, food, shelter. We had everything we had around us, and that was powerful, and they had to destroy something like that because that we didn't have to go into anything that they had. We had our own clothes. We had sisters making our own clothes for us, so we didn't need nothing. And I think that a lot of us out here have never experienced that. So when they think in terms of freedom and think in terms of consciousness, they're only seeing it in terms of just knowledge, not in terms of owning your own and only dealing with self. So yeah, you're right, brother. There's so many examples. It just takes initiative to do it, and it takes us, if us that we know this is what we need to do. We gotta start educating those. Like, yo, this is what we need to do right now. We gotta put this together, and we gotta be serious with it.